Hi, this is Johnny Whitaker, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Robertson welcoming you to this week's edition of TV Confidential, radio talk show about television that will play part two of a conversation that began last week with Les Lanham. Les Lanham, the actor known around the world as Lester Hodges on Harry O. Les will share a few more memories about his career in movies and television. He'll also tell us about an interesting book project he's involved with at the moment and how he came to play such instruments as the bagpipes. Part two with Les Lanham in our second hour. We hope you stay tuned for that. Coming up later on this hour, we will say hello to Arnie Holland. Arnie is the executive producer of Heaven, a whimsical yet thought-provoking documentary about heaven and the afterlife that also marked the directorial debut of actress Diane Keaton. Heaven is playing in select theaters as we speak. It's also available for streaming on demand via virtual cinema. We'll tell you how that works and more when Arnie Holland joins us later on in this hour. We hope you stay tuned for that as well. In the meantime, we'll begin our first hour by welcoming back our friend, author, essayist, novelist, and TV historian Mitchell Hadley. If you've read Mitchell's book, The Electronic Mirror, or if you've read any of the essays or reviews that he posts every week or most every week, a couple times a week on his website, itsabouttv.com, you know that Mitchell Hadley is someone who watches television, and I say watching, I have air quotes when I say watches television, in the truest sense of the word, insofar as Mitchell recognizes that the very medium of television has always reflected our culture, driven our culture, and in many ways provided commentary on our culture and where it appears to be heading. Mitchell's latest book, Darkness in Primetime, takes that premise a step further. It is a series of essays that show how certain episodes of such classic series as The Twilight Zone, The Outer Limits, Star Trek, and The Prisoner, all of which were originally written and broadcast in either the 50s or 1960s, not only envisioned a society of 24/7 surveillance, thought control, disinformation, persecution, and loss of freedom, but portrayed these realities in ways that are disturbingly similar to the world that we currently occupy. We'll tell you more about Darkness in Primetime and more importantly, where you can find it in just a second. Mitchell Hadley, welcome back to our program.
Thank you very much, Ed. It's great to be with you again.
In a way, your latest book, Darkness in Primetime, takes the title and the premise of your previous book, which was called The Electronic Mirror, a step further. Only instead of showing how certain television shows reflect the values of the culture in which they originally aired, you give examples of how certain shows from the golden age of television projected some of the realities that were present then, and as we said in our open, are very much still present today.
Yeah, what was interesting about the entire experience, and I started working on this project about 5 years ago. As a TV historian, I spend a lot of time going through old TV guides, old newspapers, periodicals, different things like that. And I began to notice this trend. Oh my gosh, this show, whatever it happened to be, this show is talking about something that's actually happening today. And sometimes they were, for example, news programs where in 1957 they were debating the Electoral College or the filibuster, and you're thinking to yourself, it's been 70 years and they're still arguing about the same things they are today.
But the more things change, the more things stay the same.
Exactly. But then as I started to look at some of the dramas, and it progressed from the anthology series like Studio One or Playhouse 90, Kraft Television Theater, some of the really prestigious shows of the 50s into the 60s, and episodes of individual programs or made-for-TV movies, I started to notice that they were really talking about storylines that you might expect to see on TV today. That they were that Just reading the description in TV Guide, they were that similar to the kind of a movie you might expect to see today that it literally could have been written today. And it really was an oh my gosh type of moment.
Yeah, and it's important you mention some of the prestigious live television dramas of the early 50s, the era that Rod Serling first made his mark, Reginald Rose first made his mark. And one of the things that made some of the dramas, particularly patterns by Rod Serling, just pops into my head right now,
Mm-hmm.
where um, you know he could comment on something that's going on in advertising and how advertising, both print and then television advertising, are really manipulative, and
Mm-hmm.
which
It's the job of
25 years
advertising.
later, we're still it's still very much the same issue. The difference is back then with those prestigious dramas, you can make a statement like that because it's a one-time only event. The same way you can make a statement like that in a movie. It's a little difficult. It's harder to make the same case on a weekly series because you run into the problem of, oh, you're being subversive, and we don't want
Mm,
to do that. We
exactly.
want to push product, which Serling, of course, was able to do with the Twilight Zone by commenting on what was going on today in a world that looked a lot like the modern world, but really wasn't.
Yeah, that a lot of the shows that I write about, there was a fair amount of conversation at the time from TV critics and from viewers as well, that as to whether or not these shows should be considered fantasy or science fiction. Part of that was because you had in many of them an advanced element of technology involved. And when you look at 1984, for instance, the telescreen and some of the devices that the state used to eavesdrop and control the citizens, those are things that we kind of take for granted today as part of the technology that some of us grew up with or at least adjusted to. But back in the 50s, there were some radical concepts that these writers were discussing. And so a lot of the critics had difficulty figuring out just what to make out of them. I think the more perceptive critics understood that there was an idea being expressed in these programs, that the technology was merely a means of facilitating the core argument. In other words, what's important in 1984, or in another show, A Sound of Different Drummers, where you've got another case of really advanced technology, what's important is not the technology, but the idea behind the technology to either keep track of and spy on people or to manipulate their thoughts. And this isn't simply talking about political manipulation, although that's certainly a large part of it, but we're talking about the way the media conditions people to respond in certain ways, whether they're getting drunk on reality television, lulled to sleep, becoming very passive in nature. There was a British show, a movie called The Year of the Sex Olympics that was done in the late 1960s that basically foresaw reality TV shows like Survivor or Big Brother. Perfectly envisioned what they would become and the effect that they would have on the audience in doing so. So a lot of the irony that I found in reading the contemporary reviews was that the critics who most strenuously argued that these were fantasies and that they were describing a world that was foreign, so foreign that it was difficult to even conceive that it could happen. Those are the very stories that turned out to be most accurate in terms of what has happened.
Mitchell Hadley is with us via Zoom. Mitchell's latest book, Darkness in Primetime: How Classic Era TV Foresaw Modern Society's Descent into Hell is a series of essays that show how certain episodes of such classic series as The Twilight Zone, The Outer Limits, Star Trek, and The Prisoner — I'm going to bring up The Prisoner specifically in just a second — all of which were originally written and broadcast in either the 50s or 60s, present a vision of a dystopian future that feels all too familiar today. Darkness in Primetime, available paperback and as an ebook through Throckmorton Press, as well as Amazon.com, where the books are sold online. You can follow Mitchell Hadley on Twitter as well as Facebook.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
One more item. If you're starting a company, particularly one that is in an emerging market, you know that averting any sort of legal dispute is crucial to your business plan. Our friends at Tectonic Law offer an array of services that can help you avoid and preempt future litigation while also developing and protecting your intellectual property and intangible assets. Tectonic Law serves the needs of a host of emerging industries throughout California and beyond, including industrial designers, beverage makers, artists, farmers, retail stores, health practitioners, wellness experts, cosmetics manufacturers, nonprofit organizations, innovators in sustainable practices, and libraries. Go to tectoniclaw.com to learn more about how Tectonic Law can help your business thrive. tectoniclaw.com. Rock solid representation for groundbreaking industries.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay Area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
Ed Robertson, thanking you for listening to the TV Confidential podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button so that you won't miss our next episode.
Hey, friend, I hope you know this is Pat Boone, and you and I are enjoying TV Confidential with my buddy Ed.
You mentioned the British series that foresaw reality television 30 years before the fact. Now, while most of the episodes and or live dramas, or in at least one case, made for TV movies that you discuss in Darkness in Primetime, the vast majority of the shows you discuss are American made. There's at least one episode that was British made, and that's one of my favorite episodes of The Prisoner.
Yes.
The
general.
The general. He doesn't use the term artificial intelligence. He, of course, being Patrick McGoohan, the star of The Prisoner and the man who originated the concept for The Prisoner. But he might as well have, because it explores the merits of instant information and absorbing a collegiate level course in a matter of minutes, and whether that's good or bad.
One of the remarkable things about that episode of The Prisoner is that you've got a situation where you have technology-based knowledge. So in a sense, it's very familiar to us. Instead of logging into your computer, you turn on the college level education, and just having knowledge for the sake of knowledge, it's great, because who wouldn't want to have a college level course in European history that you could take in a matter of minutes? But the side effect, if you will, to this is that you accumulate all this knowledge and have absolutely no understanding of what it means. Anybody who is asked a question replies verbatim with the same precise answer. They do it without even being aware that they're doing it. It's just a reflex action. So they're simply parroting back what they're told, but without any perspective, without any context, without any way of being able to take that information and make any critical thinking based on it. And that points out one of the dangers of this kind of information. Brainwashing is really, I think, what it amounts to, is that you are completely at the mercy of whoever it is who's putting this information into you. What you are taking is what they want you to take. You have no control over it. You have no ability to challenge it or to question it. And once it's in you, you have no choice except but to refer back to it when you're asked about it. It becomes your entire source of information on the topic. And for a series like The Prisoner, that was all of the original idea of question authority, it comes in The Prisoner. And the idea of having all of that removed and having people not only unaware of the danger that's implicit in this kind of situation, but actually eager for it, hungering for it, wanting to get all that learning and willing to exchange in return for it any ability to be able to raise questions about it is McGowan, you could tell, was just appalled by the concept then. And I think I would love to know what he would have thought of AI and Grok and all of these things today, because we're far, far closer to what he was talking about than we were at that time. And even when you think about something like the reaction to COVID, where we started to go to the online-based learning exclusively, that is merely setting the stage for something like this. Now, I think online-based education can be very good, excellent. I've taken advantage of it myself, but you have to be able to interact with it. You have to be able to question and challenge it, and you have to be able to have resources that allow you to accumulate more knowledge in it. If it's just an info dump straight into your head, then there's no good for you and all good for the people who are doing it.
Yeah, two things. As you know, when I don't host my show, Mitchell, I write and edit books for a living. And I'm split on the concept of whether AI is a good thing to use or not. There are certain things about my work as a writer that it's a very useful tool to be, especially if you're doing marketing or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But, and this is a topic among my author colleagues that we've returned to several times in recent weeks, to piggyback on what you just said about the information dump. AI cannot replicate the human experience and what you and the emotional fabric you bring as a human being writing or helping someone else write their story. It may be able to help you parse words, but 9 times out of 10, the words that are presented, when you run it through the AI software, are variations of the same thing, but really they don't have the sort of emotional punch that only a human being with real world experience can bring to the page, and what makes good writing truly good and truly evocative. The other thing is, I have enough actor friends who are very vigilant about the whole concept of voice cloning and not getting paid for that. So because I know people whose income is affected by that, I'm very careful. I try to thread that needle very carefully.
Well, you're right. I have many of the same apprehensions that you do. On the positive side, I'm working on a new book, and AI was able to help me through a plot block that literally had blocked me for 10 years. I've had this project on the back burner because I couldn't get beyond a certain point. But by giving it the parameters of the problem, and it had to do, as it turns out, with a character. It's a novel, so it had to do with a character that had PTSD, and it was able to sort these things out and present a perfect alternative that broke the logjam in the plot that I had been having for these 10 years. So it was a wonderful thing. On the other hand, when I was putting the notes together for Darkness in Prime Time, and there are about 400 footnotes in there, but just so nobody gets alarmed, what they really are simply references to where I've gotten a lot of the information. They're not things that you have to keep flipping back and forth.
And to dovetail on that, Mitchell presents them really as they're footnotes, but they're end notes. You don't have to go to the end of the book to go back and forth, because most of these chapters are fairly brief in length, taking maybe half an hour. It's not a collegiate level course that you're.
No, not at all. I consider it popular history. Yeah, it's accessible. The chapters are bite sized, and you can read a chapter at your leisure. They have a rough theme that runs through them, but you can pick and choose at your will.
We'll pick up that thread on the other side of the break. Mitchell Hadley is with us via Zoom. Mitchell's latest book, Darkness in Prime Time, is a series of essays that show how certain episodes of such classic series of The Twilight Zone, The Outer Limits, Star Trek, and The Prisoner, all of which were originally written and broadcast in either the 50s or 60s, presents a vision of the future that feels all too familiar today. We'll talk some more, Mitchell, when we come back here on TV Confidential.
If you're a diabetic, we have great news. You can end the painful finger sticks with a new CGM. Plus, they may be covered by Medicare, Medicaid, or private insurance. If you use insulin or have had hypoglycemic events, you may qualify. Call US Med now to learn more.
800-432-8150. 800-432-8150. 800-432-8150. That's 800-432-8150.